Deep in the Transylvanian countryside lived a woman so violent, so evil, so despicable that 500 years later, her name is synonymous with vanity, soullessness, and torture. Maybe she was a witch. Maybe she was a demon. Maybe she was just a Protestant. We don't know. But what we do know is that she, like all women in power, has a legacy riddled with questions about what is truth and what is just fun slander. If you've heard of her, you've likely heard she was a violent butcheress, a bisexual incestess, and that in pursuit of youth and beauty, she bathed in the blood of the girls she slaughtered. And that slaughtering was the least painful thing she did to the 600 virgins she probably maybe killed. So let's talk about the world's most prolific and female serial killer. That's right. This one's for the girls who kill girls. We're talking about the vampiress of Transylvania, Elizabeth Báthory. Welcome back to Respect the Dead, the podcast where we don't.
Sweaty, it's no surprise that everybody celebrated your demise, and now worms are eating your eyes. So don't you worry your rotten head as you sleep in your sodden bed. It's time to respect the dead. It's time to respect the dead. It's time to respect the dead.
Yay! Okay, so I am somewhat familiar with Elizabeth Báthory, and I think I've told you this. I've always in the back of my mind, I'd be like, it'd be so cute if I opened like a bath bomb shop called Elizabeth's Báthory.
Yes.
Like Batherie.
Oh, of
Elizabeth's
course.
Báthory.
Báthory.
Yeah.
Also, I love the "ry" suffix. Like
Right.
my friend Brona works at a store, and I always whatever like I don't want to like dox them, but I'm always like, oh, you're working down at the Blankery today, and it's just it just makes it feel so olden timey. Like you're gonna
Right.
go there and there'll be a shopkeep.
It feels very provincial, very French.
So yeah, welcome back, creeps, freaks. I guess that's
Weirdos.
everyone that listens. Weirdos. We're doing a heavy hitter, and I am so glad I get to do this one because it goes with Vlad, our little Vlad boy.
Right. Our Vlad episode. That
So
was a good episode.
yeah, this one is just as bonkers. The stories that I don't know what was going on back then in the 1500s or whatever, but these people were not okay. It's very Game of Thrones. So just to note, there's no way to verify all of this. So just like, let's remember to take everything with a grain of salt. It's incredibly unlikely that none of it is true, but it is very likely that some of it is exaggerated.
Like she probably didn't take a bath in other people's blood, right?
That's like
'Cause
the
that's,
one
like,
thing she
hard.
probably didn't do.
Yeah, that's like so much effort and like very hard.
Yeah, and
And
also
gross.
really only something a man would come up with. Like, oh, she
Right.
did this all to stay young and beautiful.
Right.
It's like, no, some girls actually just like torture, and this isn't about men and the male gaze.
Yeah.
You can't even torture 600 virgins to death without some
Oh my
man
God.
thinking it's about him.
This isn't about you, Grigory.
Grigory is such a gross name, and I love it. Okay, so her parents, Baroness Anna and Baron George, were related, which was super popular back then.
They loved that. They loved
Yeah.
incest. It was super in style.
Yeah, they were like, I don't know if they got it from the Ethel Cain album or like chicken egg situation. Wait, that's
Right.
inbred. Oh, but also
Same
yes.
thing. Yeah, same thing.
Okay.
Inbred comes from incest.
So Bathory means good hero, which is like kind of really funny now, but was probably super cunty back then.
Yeah.
Like, hi, I'm Elizabeth Superman. It's just like,
Oh my God. Imagine your name is like Big Hero 6.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth, Big Hero 6.
Big
Nice to
Hero
fucking
6.
meet you. They got the name because a Báthory named Vitus or Vetus had apparently slayed a dragon, and people were like, "Wow, what a good hero." But like
I
now that
believe
we,
it.
but like now that we know he probably killed the last dinosaur or whatever, maybe he was actually a piece of shit. Or more likely, nothing happened. He like walked in the woods and like saw a lizard and like stabbed
He's
it
like, "I'm
and was
a
like,
dragon."
it was a baby, I think. I'm like, well, that was a salamander. And now their coat of arms has a dragon on it. So, homegirl Elizabeth, born in 1560, August 7th. So that's like a Leo.
Later than I would have thought too. Everything sounds so archaic that I would have thought at like 1400s at the latest, but 1560, that's late.
1560 to me in my head, as I was doing this research, I was like, that's like 1,000 years ago. And then, like, while actually writing it, I was
I
like,
mean,
that's
it's like
not like
half that.
1,000 years ago.
It's like half that, but
It's like
yeah.
very specifically not. But in my head, it's like that is dragon era. Like,
Right,
because it's all the same thing to me. I know you know things
right.
about like two doors and stuff, but
2 door
I
yeah, this is mid 2 doors. This is mid 2 doors.
okay.
This is like just a little bit before Shakespeare.
I'm like, I look at a date and I'm like, okay, my only 2 points of reference to place this is like, was this before steam power? And is it after the world being flat? And then I just like, I have to place it somewhere around those two landmarks.
Exactly halfway between that. We had already built the globe, but
Okay.
we made it round.
The most amazing feat of human engineering
Truly,
was what
yeah.
is when we decided that the world would be better. It'd be faster to get around if it was a globe.
Mhm. Like, it sucks walking from one end to the other of this. I
And
wish
my
there was a
uncle just
shortcut.
fell off the end.
We gotta do something about this.
First, we solved flat Earth, then we solved that gaping hole in the ozone layer.
And then Leonardo DiCaprio was like, "Hang on, I've got a few ideas. I've got a few sketches in my notebook."
Okay, so 1560, she's born to a Protestant aristocratic lineage, and she was like, I don't know, pretty powerful. Like her family was in the dominant class, and within Transylvania, there was an independence that was ruled by her family. So like there was lots of like power grabs going on, but at that moment when she was born, they had it. Like her uncle Stefan Bathory was the Prince of Transylvania, and then at one point was like the King of Poland and the Grand Duke of Lithuania. He got
Stefan
around.
Bathory is a cunty
I know,
name.
it's so good. It's giving the Vampire Diaries.
Yeah.
Like very much so. It's CW.
I bet when he entered a room, he stood with a little hip hop.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely. So Elizabeth was raised like you'd expect, lots of tutoring and decorum and learning worldly
mhm.
things, teaching her languages.
Oh my
She was
god, she
giving
could
like
read.
yeah, oh, she read so much. And she was
Oh my god.
like
Girl
really
boss.
stuck up and annoying about it, like Belle from Beauty and the Beast.
Mhm.
It was like
That's literally exactly what I was thinking of.
just like walking through the town being like, ew, I bet they can't read like I can read. She was like in the gifted
Not like
program
the
and
other
just like
girls.
spitting on the commoners. I'm not like other girls. I can read. She also had epilepsy, but back then they were like seizures and headaches. We know what that is. Demons.
Devils,
Genetic
yeah.
demons that other family
Genetic
members
demons.
also have. Or you're just like a terrible person.
Mhm.
It's one of two.
Why not both?
So this is like a period of time where people were like, "Oh my god, we're so enlightened. We like read books and we learn languages." But also we beat our servants and torture people in like increasingly gory devices. They were
Right.
like, "If God didn't want me to whip my servants, then why did he invent arms? And if he didn't want me to cut the hands off of thieves, then why did he invent me?
Exactly.
If he didn't want me to burn a witch, why did he make women so flammable? Think about it, I haven't."
They were all reading books, but the books were like 1001 ways to murder your slaves.
How to kill your friends and behead people.
The 48 laws of murder.
Okay, here's an example. Around that time, nobility would do stuff like they would find someone who was leading like a cute little peasants' revolt, and then they
Mm.
would capture them, force them to sit on a smoldering, heated iron throne and wear
Mm.
a heated iron crown and holding a heated scepter.
That's just like it's so much effort.
It's
It's
so
it's so much effort.
dramatic.
It's
Yeah.
so over the top. Like at least in
It's
England, they were just chopping people's heads off. Like
yeah,
they were
it's
like,
giving
I
Carrie
don't have time for
Underwood.
this. Yes. Like, girl, you don't need to slash the seats of his car and the tires. You
Maybe he
just
cheated
need
on
to
you because you're insane. You're
Yeah.
abusive. Like
Yes.
you're telling me this is the first time that you reacted like this to something? Like
Also, I get the impression from that song that they're already broken up at this point. So I'm like, I don't know. Well, it is called Before He Cheats, but still, I get the impression that he doesn't know he's cheating.
yeah, no, absolutely not. He's actually never met her. This is a baby reindeer situation.
She's been watching him go to work every single day. Carrie,
He's
Carrie,
married.
to the woman that he's flirting with
Yeah.
while playing polo. She rode with him in the car.
It's actually her car.
Oh no.
Okay. So, anyways, he's on the throne, he's burning, and then they lead out all of the rebels that worked with him, and they were starved beforehand. And then
Oh
they like
no.
cut,
So they smell that barbecue?
he smelled that barbecue. And then the
No. Oh my god.
executioners grab some pliers and start digging chunks out of him and
Mhm.
throwing the meat, getting like gashes open and telling them to like chew on him. Like real sicko stuff. And this is like the stuff that she grew up hearing about, being like, "Oh, honey, did you hear about this? Like what the king did last week? It's so funny."
Someday all of this will be yours.
So yeah, they ended up like torturing like 70,000 peasants from that rebellion. I don't know where they found the time. I guess they don't work. It's like a landlord, right? Like an
Yeah.
original landlord,
Yeah.
just a lord.
Literally, where we get the word. Just a lord, just like collecting other people's money. And this is the thing. They get too bored. They get too bored and then they want to do
Yeah,
violence. This is
yeah,
why landlords must go back to work.
yeah. And why in this day and age they just go to the bottom of the ocean, which is so much better.
Oh my god, it's so fun.
So the Bathories, super rich, have wide stretches of land in what would now be Hungary, Romania, and Slovakia. And they're just sitting on fat stacks of gold. So they did what all rich people do. They lent with interest.
Oh
And
no.
by
Of course they
doing this,
did.
they became one of the most powerful families because not
Right.
only does everybody know that they have like a shit ton of land and a shit ton of influence, they also are owed debts by all the other powerful families.
That's how you do it. That's how you do it, baby.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And one of these families was one of the most powerful and prominent ones, the Habsburgs. Do you know these girls?
Yeah, they're a big one. They're a big
Known
one and also
for the
they
Habsburg jaw.
yeah, known for a little bit of incest.
I read this article called "The Habsburg Jaw: How Inbreeding Ended a Dynasty," and I
Did
just
you see the
need to
pics?
yes. Honestly, I was kind of into the men. They're just giving, like, Matt Smith. Like, they
I wonder if he has any
they
Habsburg
just
blood.
I don't think there is any Habsburg blood left.
Oh, there
I think
absolutely the fuck is.
Oh,
There
really?
is. Yeah, I think
Okay,
there's still some Habsburgs alive.
okay, well, good luck to you and descendants, 'cause like, reverse ancestors, 'cause
Let me look up.
oof. I'm
Oh
not gonna
yeah,
put
okay.
photos up because I don't wanna get in trouble for making fun of somebody for being inbred or whatever.
So there is a current Austrian politician who is a Habsburg, and his name is Karl.
With a C or a K?
With a K.
Okay,
Karl
that's better.
Habsburg.
Carl sounds like such a
He doesn't
s
look too inbred. They must have gotten
he's
some fresh blood in the family.
Yeah. That's what Elizabeth was doing,
Oh my god.
purifying her blood.
She wasn't trying to look pretty, she just needed some infusions because she was so
Yeah.
fucking inbred. She was like, "Please, my cells are sickling."
So, before Elizabeth was born, during one of the Habsburg power grabs, the Bathories took two different sides. Like, dad's side backed the Habsburgs, and mom did not. But later, when the tides were turning, daddy stopped supporting the Habs and they took his castle away. In
Oh,
retaliation, he married Anna, who he then had Elizabeth with. So, like, they hated her from the very beginning. This
okay.
baby was like a way for
She
them
didn't
to
stand a
solidify their
chance.
power
Mhm.
against the Habsburgs. So
Right.
she was
Who just
like,
stole their house.
yeah. In my head, the Habs were like, oh, if you love them so much, why don't you marry them? And he was like, okay, I will. So they hated them, but they still borrowed money from them, which is kind of weird. It's like sending a Venmo request to your ex's new girlfriend's mom. Like, why are
Oh my
you?
god, that's such a good idea, though. Can you imagine the audacity?
Honestly, everybody in this story is a nobleman or a noble person. So the audacity is off the charts with every single one of them. And now that it's like 10,000 years later, it feels campy and less like horrible.
Yeah, like, oh my god, I do wanna send a Venmo request to my ex's new girlfriend's mom and just be like, "Hey, can I hang on to 20 for a couple of days?" Like, not even a lot, just to see what I can get away with.
Yeah. So the Bathory family was trying to broaden their reach, get some alliances going. So in 1571, Elizabeth was promised to Hungary's most eligible and wealthy bachelor, Francis Nadasdy, and then had to move to live with his relatives
For any nads.
until she was like ready to get married
Right. She had to
because
have
there
her
needed to
period
be,
first or
yeah.
whatever. Was he okay, so he was wealthy. Do we know if he was good looking? Like, was she set up well, or was she looking
Uh,
forward to some
they they did get along, and they had a lot
okay.
of kids together, and they
Okay.
loved doing, like, cute things together. I don't know, I thought he was kinda cute. I'm gonna send you a photo of
Yeah, send
him.
me a picture.
He's, a giant with a tiny head, but that might just be the painting.
Sometimes when you're really tall, your head looks really tiny. Yeah, actually, I obviously, I love the mustache.
Yeah, same.
Eyebrows are a little over plucked, but, he's Eastern European, so I bet if I told him to stop plucking, they'd grow back.
Oh, yeah, he also has, like, drag queen eyebrows in a lot of the paintings where he, like, clearly
Mm,
plucked the ends off so that he could, like,
yeah.
draw them on more
Look,
femme, which I love.
big lips in the second one, like,
Oh, yeah.
he's got a good injectionist.
Yeah, he's looking yassified. He's giving a
Mhm.
little long legs, but that's okay.
A little bit, yeah,
Yeah.
without the nose job.
So, rumor is that when she was a teen living in his family's estate, waiting to get married, she become pregnant by, like, some disgusting little poor person and had a little
Uh-oh.
bastard
Can't
child.
do that. Oh.
And when the count found out, he cut off the guy's cock and balls
Ooh.
and threw it and the man to some wild dogs. And then,
Ooh.
her daughter was apparently either taken or murdered, but this could be a lie intended to slander her
Okay.
as a dirty
So,
little slut.
basically, nobody really knows who the man or the daughter are. They
Yeah,
just
exactly.
it's just like, "I heard she cheated and had a baby out of wedlock, but then
Yeah.
they killed both of them, so I can't produce receipts because I deleted them."
Yeah. I accidentally deleted all my text messages.
Yeah.
Um, and so this is like often presented as like, see, she was bad news to begin with, but like she was also a child. It was like
Yeah.
1573. So she was like 13 or 14. So like I'm not like, what that slut.
Yeah.
And also, if she was 40, I also wouldn't be like that slut because maybe that poor guy was super fucking hot.
Yeah. And, like, maybe
Poor
she was
people are
super
hot
fucking
too,
bored
you
of her
know.
husband.
Well, he was off like doing other stuff.
I
Like,
know,
sorry if she had a
women have
court
needs.
romance. Yeah.
Yeah, just be
And also,
cool.
she
Oh
was
my
like
god.
13. I'm not going to judge her for that. I'm very comfortable judging the dead, but like, I don't think
Mm,
she did anything wrong there. That's the one thing she didn't do wrong in her
no.
entire
Women
life.
are allowed to have hobbies.
Yeah. And she will get some. At 15, she marries the count, but keeps her own last name because her family didn't wanna lose the power. They
Oh my
wanted
god, girl
the name to
boss.
still mean something and have that, like, household name status. Just
Mhm.
like, you know Angelina Jolie's not gonna change her last name.
Yeah.
She probably gave it, like, a hyphen or something, right? Like, Jolie
I
Pitt?
think the kids were Jolie Pitts, but I think
Oh,
she
okay.
stayed Jolie.
So they had children together, but not for 10 years after they got married, and she got pregnant
Oh,
5
wow.
times, and 3 lived, which seems really good.
Yeah,
Like,
those are good
those are good
odds.
odds.
Especially with like no they didn't even clean the baby back then. They just kinda like wiped it off and gave it to
Oh,
you.
yeah. Absolutely.
Let a
And they
sick
got, like,
person breathe on
wild
it first.
yeah, let some wild dogs chew through the umbilical cord.
Mhm.
They just hold up, like, a yapping little dog and just, like, push it through. And then, like, she's there raising the kids, and by raising the kids, I mean yelling at the nanny or the
Right.
governess or whoever took care of them, and she's in charge of, like, dealing with all the estate stuff because the count is doing what men should be doing, going away to war for, like, years at a time.
Well, that's good at least. At least he's pulling his own
Yeah.
fucking weight.
Exactly. Also, if my husband was gone to war for years, I would not shut up about it. I'd be like the most annoying military wife,
Mm,
like asking
right.
for discounts at farmers markets and crying whenever I see like a flag or a bald eagle or like a
Right.
gun or whatever reminded me of his
And
service to the country.
anytime you talk about him, he's my husband
Yeah.
who's in the service.
Yeah.
Even to people who know
He's been
him,
deployed. Oh,
even to
absolutely.
friends who you
To
met
his
through
mom.
him. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
like my husband who's in the service.
Yeah. As you know, Big Dan's in the service right now. Big Dan's been deployed.
Not Big Dan.
Meanwhile, he's out, like, assassinating families and, like, gooning up with his military buddies or whatever, like
Oh, you know they were gooning in those old tents.
Oh,
You know those were
absolutely.
goon tents.
I was about to say, like, should we all turn in for the night and head on into the goon tent? And
That's how they
okay.
could be away at war for so long. Otherwise, they'd have to
Oh,
come home on
absolutely.
leave every couple of months.
Yeah. Which, like, probably why she didn't have kids for 10 years.
Hmm.
Just saying. You spent
Well, good for
sorry,
her.
I was just down at the goon tent and I'm spent.
He did her a favor.
So, the Count was known for his disgusting love of torture, much like Vlad the Impaler. The Ottoman prisoners he captured were treated unkindly, if unkindly means that you and the bros all like cut off their heads and play hot potato or kickball with them.
That's just rude.
At that point, you are just doing it to
You're
be
you're just being rude.
snotty.
An
Yeah.
edgelord. Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Oh,
is
absolutely.
edgelordism. Like putting the lord in
Absolutely.
edgelordism.
And they edged down at the goon tent. The original edge lords. Okay. So,
Oh.
like, he earned his name the Black Knight, I would say. He was infamous for dancing with their corpses, and at times, he commanded that they be impaled on stakes alive so that they could just, like, hang out while they, like, died slowly around them, which
Okay,
Vlad
that's
also did.
horrible. Yeah, that's
It's
horrible.
fucking
Dancing with
insane.
their corpses, again, I think
It's
is
a little funny.
edgelordism. He's
It
doing
would be
it so that
funny the
people talk
first
about it.
time. I think it would be funny the first time for, like, 5 seconds when you're like, "Holy shit, what is he doing?" And then when he didn't
Right.
stop, like,
And then it
he
would be
finished out the song and then the next song starts and he keeps going, that's when you're like, "Oh, well, this is, like, a thing for him. Like, this isn't even about us." Like,
right.
I
I don't
thought he
even
was
know
trying
if
to
I
make
would
us
find
all
it creepy
laugh.
though. I don't even know if I would find it creepy. I would find it cringe. I'd be like, "Okay. Like, all right, do you want me to call a carriage to take you to Hot Topic now?"
Yeah, should we all or whatever Hot Topic would be back then.
Do you wanna invite Marilyn Manson?
Oh, Marilyn Manson would eat that shit up.
He would. Fuck Marilyn Manson.
Oh, no, yeah, we hate him. Everybody hates him except for, like, JK Rowling.
Oh, yeah, she
So,
loves him. Real
yeah.
sick.
When the Count returned from war, he apparently brought home his, like, newfound love of torture with him and began teaching it to his wife, who had been practicing her own sadism in her spare time. You know, like, doctors and lawyers or whatever they call it, like a practice?
Mhm.
Hers was torture.
It was a practice, yeah.
Yeah. So this is from Infamous Lady, The True Story of Countess Elizabeth Báthory. Her actual name is, like, Erzsébet, like,
Erzsébet.
Erzsebet, but in English, that would be Elizabeth, but isn't that so pretty?
I love Ursabet. That's
right?
cool.
Isn't that so cute?
Ooh, yeah, I
I know,
like
it's a
that.
really nice name, but, like, you can't name your
Ursabet.
child after her. Like, that's just asking for trouble.
No.
That's a murder baby.
Again,
S
also kind of cringe. Like,
Yeah.
if I named my daughter Eileen Wuornos, people would be like, "Ugh, please grow up."
But if you named your son Eileen Wuornos, that would be very funny.
Okay, iconic. That would be a feminist moment.
This is my gay baby, Eileen Wuornos.
Eileen Wuornos Hootman.
Gorgeous. Okay, so this is a quote from Infamous Lady. Elizabeth's torturing seemed to start out slowly and progressively, first with pinching, biting, and kicking, which is insane. You would like walk by the lady of the house and she would just like pinch you. Like
I
that's
would
worse.
die so fast because I would
I know.
slap someone back just
Oh,
like by instinct. Like,
oh,
I would just be like,
absolutely.
"Excuse me?" And then I would
uh,
be beheaded.
yeah, immediately. And then this increased in intensity and amount. Later, she advanced to pricking or sticking pins and needles into lips and under fingernails. And after you wouldn't even care. She'd be like poking you in the lips with a needle, and you'd be like, "What? I do this like every
Yeah.
2 years, bitch. That's filler, girl. Poke
Back then,
away."
you couldn't even get filler. You had to do like a little bee sting treatment.
Oh yeah. Oh my god, thank
Prick them
you.
a little
Thanks,
bit so they
queen.
could be thanks,
Oh my god, can
queen.
you do the top too? And then she switched over to inflicting burns, cutting with knives, and like this was just for fun. They hadn't necessarily done anything. This was not like
Yeah, this is just to see
intended to
what
be a
happened.
punishment. She was a hobby.
Yeah.
She was enjoying herself. She's a sadist. These are all acts of meanness and cruelty and like very childish, but not fatal. Like she burned them in the foot and legs with red hot spoons and iron bars and pried pieces off their bodies with tongs,
Ew, how do you
which
even
is
do
like
that? She had to be so
hot.
strong.
They're
Oh,
hot
hot
tongs.
tongs.
So they just like slices right through you. And
Yikes.
like all of this has been
Still had to be
verified.
really strong.
Yeah. Well, she had practice.
Gross. Mm. She had to have like really strong wrists and forearms for that, you know?
She worked it up with all that
This
pinching.
part. This part. Yeah. I bet her arms were
Yeah.
really toned.
Not her being having these like insanely buff arms from all the torture.
Her husband came home from war and was like, "Those are gooning arms. What have you been up to? I'm gonna kill a
and he
poor person over
and he
this."
only has one.
Yeah, but it's really strong.
Yeah, it's
It's twice as
god,
big as hers
the pair of them.
with their gooning arms. Disgusting Popeye shit.
So the Count had new and fresh ideas that she hadn't gotten to try, though, and he would teach them to her on lazy servants, which I don't think means actually lazy,
Right.
but like slipping oil soaked paper between their toes and setting it on fire. And then when
What
they
the
would run
fuck?
around flailing and screaming in agony, he would be like, just a reminder, like, stay
M
diligent.
Move a little faster.
Yeah.
See what you're
And it's
doing
like,
right
do you think
now?
they're
The way you're running around? I need you to do that all the time.
It's like, yeah, well, I'm not gonna be able to because I'm gonna have I'm gonna
No
have juicy
toes.
feet.
Juicy
This will
feet.
My feet are gonna be wet and gooping. Like, these feet are gonna be gooped up. You're gonna hear me walking down the castle from like a
Like
mile away, like somebody like somebody's stirring pasta salad. Real
Ugh.
sicko stuff. This one's wild. So he brought her home a present from the battlefield, which was like a black claw like device that you put your hand inside. Something like Lady Gaga would probably wear.
Okay.
And there's sharpened, like razor sharp claws on it. So she was now
Okay.
just running around the castle being like,
Like Black Panther.
yes.
Okay.
And she used it to rip, stab, and slice into people. So now she was just like like running out there like fucking Catwoman, one dragon claw on her arm. And she would like cut them up while he like covered them in honey and threw them into an ant pile and stuff. Like
It
just
does sound like they had a
absolute.
really good marriage, though. Like, they
Well,
had a
I was gonna
really good
say like,
husband-wife relationship.
yeah, it's like couples who like enjoy that both love D&D or like
Right.
bondage or whatever. Like when you find something that both of you really enjoy, and it's nice that they don't do everything together. Like she
No, they
manages
have
to
their own
stay, he
things.
goes away. They each have their own individual torture stuff, but then when they get together, they get to
They
like
have something.
they get to
Yeah.
be together.
Yeah, they have a
And
hobby
I
that
think
they
that's
really
nice.
like, and I think it's cute
Yeah.
that they get, like, more into the hobby. They each of them got
Yeah,
more into
yeah,
the
yeah.
hobby after they discovered that the other liked it, like,
Yeah, and
yeah.
then they, like, teach each other their own, like, little tricks. They're like, "I like to do it this way." I don't know.
Cute.
It's romantic.
Mhm. It's like when I showed my boyfriend Stardew Valley.
Exactly. They both were torturers, but
Mhm.
she is known way more than him. Like, he's, like, sort of in the
Misogyny.
periphery. I think she was just better at it,
Okay.
right?
So
Like,
she girl
she
bossed her way to the top.
yeah, and he eventually died before her, and then she had free reign to do whatever the fuck she want, but we'll get to that. She kept escalating, doing things like beating them until bones broke, like, she wouldn't stop hitting you until she heard
Jesus.
a bone break.
She had to be so strong. I'm sorry, like,
I
this
mean,
bitch
yeah,
was strong. I'm sure their
absolutely.
bones were more brittle then, but still, like, I
Mhm.
bet she was fucking buff.
Yeah, well, they weren't taking calcium supplements. They were
Yeah.
mostly chewing on, like, raw wheat and, like, eating fish from the river that the shit from the
Bird
castle
bones.
ran into. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, yeah,
Oh,
their bones weren't
absolutely.
as strong as ours,
Yeah.
but I still think, like, she had weak bones too. Like, she was very strong for a woman
Well,
of
she
her
was probably well
age.
fed, probably had a lot of, like, dragon's milk to drink, so she
Mm.
probably got her calcium.
Oh my god, just like my
Um,
friend Amelia Clark.
like any woman with a hobby, she was accused of by some of being a witch or a demon or, like, at
Or
least being taught
lesbian.
what to do. Yes. With her aunt.
With her an incestuous lesbian. Oh, but everybody was
Yes.
incestuous back then, so that was
Yeah.
fine. That was the okay
Yeah.
part. It was the lesbian
Yeah.
part that was
Well,
weird.
yeah, the lesbian part is the fucked up part. Well, she was
Always
accused of
the
being bisexual,
Oh, okay.
which is worse because, like, you
They're
know.
like, "She'll fuck anything."
Yeah, because it makes you a slut and not
Mm,
whereas, like, a lesbian, you're
yeah,
just, like, evil. Whereas, like, a
right.
bisexual person is like, well, now you're kinda
Whore.
slutty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There's, like, several points where she is said to have just escalated, like, dramatically. One of them is when her husband came back that we just talked about. The next one is when she got close with her confidant and servant, Darvulia. And Darvulia is like fucking whisper in your ear. Like you would see them in the room together and she would be like whispering something to her. And then Elizabeth would like look over at you and then you knew you were about to get your ass fucking beat. Like
Oh my
this
god.
girl egged her on so much. And now that
I
she
love
had like a
female
cute girly
friendships.
audience, yes. And exactly,
I
it's
love
like
female friendships.
again, it's like that thing where when two people are both like into the same thing, it like fuels each other. And
Mhm.
Darvulia loved torture. And servants would say that like if Darvulia was there, you knew things were about to get bad because she wanted to impress her. She wanted to be like, "See, look what I'm gonna do." She wanted to like think
Right.
of something new to come up with to be like, "Oh my god, she's gonna freak out when she sees me like put their head in a beehive or whatever." Like,
Right. That's probably a good way to ensure that you don't get tortured as well, is to be like, "But I'm also a
oh yeah,
torturer. I'm with you."
exactly. Yeah, oh my god, we're so the same. It's so funny how about other people who aren't like us get tortured and people like us, who is you and me, do not
We
get
do the
tortured.
torturing. Well, again, it also sounds like Elizabeth, she was evil, but, like, it sounds like she had a really good support network.
Yeah, and I think it was important back then. Like, there's no way you can't say this is feminism
Yeah.
because back then it was men who did all the torturing.
She broke
So,
that
like,
torture glass ceiling. She
yeah,
broke that chainmail ceiling.
for the time, I would say it was progressive, absolutely.
Mm.
And like,
Girl
look at us
boss.
now. We have a woman almost winning president. So like
For the second time.
the lineage s- straight straight down from
Straight down to
Elizabeth Bathory.
Kamala. These are the witches they couldn't burn.
So this is a quote about Darvulia from Infamous Lady. It is said that Darvulia began to make more frequent appearances at court and eventually took up a permanent residence with the Countess. She was described by locals as a wild beast in female form who taught Lizzie and other servants. The book did not call her Lizzie. I just didn't want to say like Urzabat. Who taught Lizzie and the other servants elaborate and deadly methods of torture. Darvulia's favorite method of torture included beating someone repeatedly, up to 500 times in some cases, until death finally occurred.
Again, I would be so tired. Imagine
I know.
hitting someone
Oh my God,
500 times.
I honestly, I couldn't do it. I wouldn't even make it in the goon tent.
I
Like, I.
know, neither would I. I work out, but I would get like 15 whacks in and I'd be like, why don't you go think about what you've done?
No, my arm hurts when I iron my hair. Like, I'm like, I've been
Me
holding
too.
it up for too long.
To take a little break.
Yeah.
To sit down.
So this is finishing the quote. She served as gatekeeper for the Countess as well as a personal advisor. She, in fact, was reputedly the one who had advised the Countess to take on only peasant girls who had not yet tasted the pleasures of love. So this is where we get
Virgins.
the virgins going on,
Right.
which is
Also,
probably a good time to take a
Darvulia.
break.
Okay.
Darvulia is a really good name.
Darvulia is such a good like sidekick name, right? Like
Yeah,
evil
she does sound like
sidekick.
she was named after like a not too pretty flower, but that's
Right.
okay as a sidekick.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
okay as a
Yeah.
sidekick.
She's your
Yeah.
sidekick. She's
Yeah,
the
and
evil
she's a
parrot
servant,
sitting on your
so she
shoulder.
can't have like an amazing name.
No. She's
Like you're not
no
gonna.
Ursa Betts.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's take a break and we'll see if we get any ads for things for virgins like sacrifices or
Or
Reddit.
yeah. Manuals on how to pick up women.
Yeah.
Andrew Tate courses.
Okay, and we're back.
Hi.
And
I hope you
we're
enjoyed listening to your Andrew Tate course advertisements.
we definitely enjoyed getting the ad revenue from someone who is advertising on our channel, and literally nobody that ever listened to this podcast would ever have any interest in watching.
Thanks,
I
girl.
get comments sometimes being like, I got a Matt Walsh ad on your very gay video. You
Right.
should block him. And I'm like, no.
I want his money.
I want his money to be spent on me and my gay needs. And
Exactly.
I want his ad money to go to be directed at people who will never listen to him. Like, it would not be
Yeah.
better if some like right wing or like centrist 16-year-old is getting a Matt
Right.
Walsh ad. Like, it should be going to my very queer and trans audience who's like,
Yeah.
ew, gross. Okay, so we're at the beginning of the 1600s
Oh my
and
God.
following,
Shakespeare's around now.
oh my God, is he? What's he doing?
He's writing.
Writing plays. Yeah.
Mhm.
Classic Shakespeare.
He's so fucking predictable.
So at the beginning of the 1600s, following Darvulia's guidance, Homegirl steps it up a notch, like several notches. There is no belt left.
Mhm. Again, this
So
is like what it's like when you're out drinking with your girlfriends and like one
yeah,
thing leads to another and you just keep like trying to top each other. And before you know it, you're like standing outside of your ex's house, slashing all of his tires.
to all the gay girlies in the audience, yes, I heard it too. You're out with all your girlfriends trying to top each other. Ooh. Okay, I need to learn how to pronounce this word. Geneseum.
Geneseum?
It looks like
A word that we're not allowed to say on YouTube.
Gynoecium.
Oh, okay. A different one. Okay.
I
It
just sent
sounds
you the
like
word.
another word we're not allowed to say. Gynoecium. Gynoecium, though.
Gynoecium.
Oh
Yeah,
my
because it's
god.
not Latin, right?
Is that a vagina room?
Basically, so so what she did,
Based.
there there's two versions of this. There's one outside of Hungary, and it's basically like boarding house kind of thing for noble
Okay.
women who
For
aren't yet
women.
married. But in Hungary at the time, it was more of a like boarding school. So you learn all the things that
That women learn.
Elizabeth would learn. Well, a noble woman, yeah. So they'd be teaching them languages, like like a German was big at the time, so that like if they do get married off to some
They can
important
speak to him.
lord, yeah, they could be like, "Hey, I love our family's alliance, and you, I guess." But you could say that in German. So you learn like manners, dancing, how to be a high society lady, other languages, how to find a husband. So basically, it was like TikTok.
Uh-huh.
And here, Lizzie would lure them in with the promise of becoming a powerful, intelligent, and learned woman like herself because she was doing really well for herself at the time, right? Like
Right.
she was from a powerful family, married to one of the most powerful and charming men, and they would come from all over to live at her home.
So she
And
hosted
they were
a Gonaceum
yeah.
or
Yes.
okay. So she was
And
like, "Hey fam, it's your girl,
yeah.
Elizabeth.
Hey,
If you
chat.
want to get a man, hey chat. If you want to get a man, sign up for my course.
Yes.
Come live at
She's
my place. There's no
Eli
torture."
Elizabeth. There's, like, I can promise you 0 torture. Not a single person will leave here alive saying they've been tortured. And, like, these were girls. Like, these were little
Like
girls, like
13-year-olds.
13-year-old girls. It's, like, legitimately so fucked up that she just started basically a place where she had victims constantly streaming in for her to torture and kill.
Mm.
And then reports from people that lived in, like, the villages around the estate would be that, like, they constantly saw fucking caskets streaming out. So, like, carriages coming in with girls and, like, just caskets leaving. Like,
I don't know
a
what's
really
going on. This
fucked up
flu this
assembly
year is
line.
really bad.
She said it was cholera. She kept being
Did she
like,
actually say it
"That
was
yeah,
cholera?
yeah."
That's exactly what I jumped to.
And
That's what I
and
would
then
have done
and
too.
then
I'd have been like, it's just like it's something's really been going around this
yeah,
autumn.
yeah, and then the priests were like, "Can we see the bodies?" She's like, "You can see the faces." And she would just, like, pull down the sheet and be like, "Oop, is that good?" And he could be like, "Well, I know I wanna do an autopsy." And she's like, "Okay, you can see it." Do you
Wait,
get
what
it?
was that on her ear? Is there I thought I saw a little blood.
Nope. And it's like these people had, like, bite marks out of them, and
Oh
she's,
my
like, literally,
god.
like, wearing a claw, and there's, like, claw marks down their chest. She's like, "I don't know how that happened." Like, her little claws, like, doing that sound knives do in movies where you pull them out of, like, a leather
Ching,
sheath, and it's like,
ching.
"Sing." Yeah. And, like, when when a new batch of girls would arrive, it would be weeks before they were all dead. Like, it's not like this was some
Jesus.
slow burn. Like, they they were shipped in, then they were shipped out. And she didn't kill men. She just
That's
didn't
so
kill men.
weird.
I know. I
That's
don't like
okay,
it.
that's the least feminist thing so far.
Yeah, that's why at the beginning I was like girls who kill girls because like it was like
Mm.
very specifically girls too. Like there was only
Mm.
one story of an older woman that was even mentioned in all of the reports. I have a quote here from Infamous Lady because I wanted to read it like verbatim because it's fucking wild. Witnesses say that the Countess also murdered a married woman who once refused to follow orders. It was customary at the time to use unmarried virgin girls to work as table attendants during festivals. When she didn't have enough young girls on hand, the Countess ordered the woman to pretend to be one of the virgins and dress up like a young girl. It appears that she had ordered the woman to dress up as a girl on other occasions as well, and up until that point, she had been a favorite of the Countess and worked, like, for her, like, pretty consistently. According to witnesses, however, the woman finally could no longer abide by the requests to play the part of a child and apologized. "But certainly, my dear high and gracious lady, I cannot be a girl since I have already a husband and a son, my little Ferenc," which is a very cute name.
Frank, that is a cute name.
Ferenc. Gorgeous. I love all these names.
Really cute. Cute name for a baby fox.
Oh, yes. The lady became enraged at this. In her anger, she went and brought in a small log, commanding her to put it in diapers and carry it around with her and carry it with her around the castle, saying, "Suckle your child, you whore. Don't let it cry."
Okay. That is very funny. And also very funny is like the like tutor equivalent of someone telling you like, "Here, Janice, put on this Oshkosh bagosh
Yeah.
onesie and wander me around. Wander me around.
A,
Wander around with me." I don't know what I'm saying.
a diaper on a log.
A diaper on a log. They had that in Twin Peaks. Well, it wasn't really, but
I really want to know when this was happening. Did she immediately turn and be like, "I gotta get a log"? Or was she like, "I need to find something to act like a stupid little baby"? I really wanna know, like, what the plan was here, because it doesn't sound like it took her much time. Like, it sounded like she marched off and was like, "Don't you go anywhere," and came back with a log and, like, a shit-eating grin on her face. Let me finish this quote. "The lady even woke her up at night, violently forcing the piece of wood to her breast as though it were a baby, telling her to breastfeed."
yeah, that's unhinged.
Later, the witnesses said that the lady tortured her in a variety of ways until she finally died. So, like, not
Okay.
a good boss.
Yeah, and, like, I do think that women need hobbies, but, like, I do think
It's too
you need
far.
more than one, because if you get too into one hobby, you end up being
Yeah.
like this. This is too
Yeah.
much. This is
Yeah.
you need to Elizabeth, touch grass, Elizabeth. Touch grass.
Yeah. Not a servant. Like, why don't
Not
you
a
go take
servant.
that claw?
Yeah.
Why don't you take the claw for just take the claw for a moment and go touch grass with your hand? And like, I don't wanna don't I mean, like, don't like make me breastfeed a log or whatever.
Go
Your
back to where
hand is
you found
starting
that log.
your hand is starting to smell. Everybody's
Really?
noticed.
Yes. Everyone's
Yeah.
talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah. People have been calling you catcher's mitt. And it's just it's really gross. Like you smell rusty and like a little bit like you're wearing a bunch of necklaces from our den.
Mm.
You smell like a Claire's. You smell like a sweaty girl at Claire's.
And, like, a little bit of underboob.
I
Little
don't know about
underboob
that, but that sounds
cheese.
right to me. Yeah.
Yeah, a little underboob cheese.
Yeah. And when she was too sick to run around the castle, forced breastfeeding logs, she would order the servant girls be brought up to her chamber to cheer her up, where she would like pull off chunks of their flesh with her teeth.
Imagine you've got, like, an upper respiratory infection, and for
Mm.
fun, you're biting off chunks of people. Like,
But they didn't have TV.
they didn't have video games, I know.
Yeah. Well, honestly, video games have made people less violent because now you can do this stuff in a game instead of doing it to your servants.
Yeah, she would've
She would have
been a
loved
hell of a
Stardew Valley.
streamer. She would've been a hell
Yeah.
of a
Oh
yeah, she
my
would've loved
god.
Stardew Valley.
Her walking around in Skyrim, just killing every person she runs into and cackling. But like her servants just come in, they bring her whatever Mountain Dew used to be called back then.
Uh-huh.
Actually,
1,000,000
Mountain Dew sounds
subs.
like a very old
Ye
beverage.
old Mountain Dew, yeah.
Like, I brought you
Literally Mountain
a
Dew.
goblet a goblet of Mountain Dew,
Dew with a
which is
mountain, yeah.
literally just spring water. Okay, that's gorgeous. Like a beautiful golden goblet filled with Mountain's Dew. So, like, yes, she killed a lot of peasants, but this wasn't really a problem because you're allowed to kill peasants. They're
Yeah,
peasants. They're
But
like
the noble
ants.
women were the problem.
Yes. And these bitches were coming there to learn how to get married off and solidify their family's power and then not coming home. And the
And
families
then
were
their
like,
dad was like, "Who am I gonna marry off now?"
yeah, exactly. Like, you know how long it took us to grow that one? You have to wait 12 years before you're even allowed to get them pregnant.
Yeah.
So, obviously, yeah, the noble women, a problem, which is why she tried to pass it off as a cholera outbreak. But obviously, that was not working because they didn't have cholera and nobody else
It
in
starts to
in the
get
castle
suspicious
was
after a
dying of
while. Yeah.
cholera. Yeah, oh, cholera again. Another cholera outbreak.
They just keep coming and dying of cholera. Maybe it's something with the boats that are bringing them over here.
Yeah, and then but you also can't see their bodies, because of very interesting reasons that are none of your fucking business.
Question, do we know if the families of these women were paying her anything to send them there as well? Like, were they giving her any money or jewelry or
Not that
whatever?
I know of, but I'm
Mm,
assuming that in this process, there was some sort of, like, debt that is being
right.
owed. I don't know if it was a financial one or just accruing
Or
power.
just work. Yeah.
Yeah. So, obviously, the way things were going, people were starting to notice, people in the towns were starting to notice, reports were being handed up, noble people were contacting the, like, actual, like, lords and being like, so all of our daughters are super dead, and she says it's cholera, but we're not allowed to have the bodies?" And people were seeing all the coffins or the caskets being, like, paraded the fuck out of there. But while the count was still alive, they were too scared to challenge her
Mm,
because he had so much more power than most of them, and they owed him so much that, like, her deeds were protected by his power. But when he died in 1604, people were like, "Oh no. Oh, now it's time to get this bitch." This guy named Georgie Thurzo, which also amazing name. Georgie is Gyorgy. All of these
ooh,
names are fucking amazing. So he had been tasked with basically being, because she was not allowed to be in control of everything herself. He was like the steward of her and the estate, but then she had her own stuff that was a separate, that was her family's money and their estate. So he had power over anything that was joint before the husband died. But she still has her own power. She still has her own connection. She has everyone in her family that are like kings and princes in other territories. So even though they're coming after her, it's not like she has no protection. She still has like her whole family and she has this guy. But the guy that's in charge of helping her would gain not just all of the husband's money, all of the count's money, but all of her estates as well, because she was running everything for her family.
okay.
And he was the first accuser. So there's
There's
obviously a motive here that's
right.
entirely plausible. And what I will say is, I think it would be fucked up to say she did absolutely nothing because there's so much evidence to point that she did. But I think a lot of it was dramatized.
Mhm,
And one thing that's like whole cloth made up is her bathing in blood or
right.
putting blood on her face. Like, I think she was just raised in a extremely sadistic culture around, I mean, like the culture, I mean, like the noble people, not like the whole
Right.
culture, but like
No, but,
she was
like,
raised
at a
sadistic.
time
Yeah.
yeah,
Everybody's inbred. Like,
and I
mm.
think like, at least from what I've heard, like, the numbers have probably been massively inflated
It was somewhere
because
between 30 and 300, but people always say over 600.
right, people always say over 600, and
Yes,
I think it's
which
probably more like
is
60.
yeah, every source that I checked that was coming at it from, like, a critical perspective
Right.
said between 30 and 300, and that's a big number, like, a
Yeah.
big difference, but the thing is we know there was around 30 proven
Noble women.
noble girls killed,
Right.
yes.
And Yeah, even 30 would be, like, one of the most prolific serial killers who'd ever lived. Like,
Yeah,
you
but
think
if you
about someone like Ted
consider
Bundy and it's, like, 12 people.
yeah, but for, like, someone in power like that, like, I would imagine
Mhm.
that people over the course of history who were, like, slave owners,
Right,
like, those numbers are probably I feel like most serial killers see the people that they kill as people, and that's what they get from it, but when you see
right,
people as, like, property and stuff, like, think of people who own, like, even, like, fucking, like, sweatshops and stuff.
right.
Like, I don't like, you know what I mean? Like, but again, she
But
was,
that is
like, a
yeah,
literal killer with, like, a claw in her
yeah.
hand and
That's different than actually physically going and slitting the
yeah,
wrists of
exactly.
slitting the throats of 300 people. Like, I'm talking about, like, time enough in the day,
Yeah. Well,
killing a person a day for a
apparently,
year.
there was one period where she was sick and they brought girls up to her room where she killed, 5 in that week.
Okay.
Like, she is, like, 1 a day. Like, she is and this went on for, like, a decade.
Okay,
So, in that time, like, I mean, in a decade, like, that's not even 30 is, like, not even 1 a month,
right.
you know? Like, she had time. That's actually a lot of like, now I could be like, "It couldn't have been 1 a day because where would you get all these people?" That's
No,
wild,
it
but
wouldn't have
yeah,
been one a day. I
at
could
least,
also see
like,
what it meant
30's
though.
yeah, 30 is bad enough. Like,
Yeah.
I will say, it does not need to be 600. It does not need to be 300. Killing 30 people
No,
is very not
it's
chill.
more than most people will kill in their lives.
Yeah, definitely more than I've killed. So, once people started speaking out against her and she no longer had the protection of the count, the previous Whisper network that was like, "Oh, no, don't go work for her." Like,
Mhm.
they were now reporting to kings and to lords and being like, "Okay, she bit me really hard, see?" And
I have this really cool scar.
I think she sharpened her teeth, I heard. And then that's when things started going where people were like, "Is she a vampire? Like, what's going on down there?" The rumor mill starts going, and people start calling for her to be arrested, but, like, people in power start calling for her to be
Right.
arrested, and she's like, "Okay, I'm booking it the fuck out of here," because, like,
Mhm.
shit just got going,
Mhm.
and she escapes to her castle deep in the mountains of Slovakia, and she goes there because winter is coming, and in, like, a couple days, the roads are gonna be covered in, like, snow and ice, and no one's gonna be able to get up the mountain,
Right, right.
which is just sounds so scenic and beautiful, and I would
I
also be like,
know.
"Ha ha, you're never gonna get
Spending
up here."
Christmas spending Christmas in your mountain
Yeah,
castle, in your
but then
little
also I'm
lodge.
like, if they can wait till spring, like
Yeah.
like, it sounds like a good idea, but
Well, maybe
she
they'll
wanted the
forget by
time to
then.
contact her family.
Okay,
It's
okay.
like when you hit somebody in a video game, and if you run far enough, they just, like, forget it ever happened and run back to their spot.
Right. Also, she wanted the time to contact her family. I love that she's like, "No one can get me up here, but one of my servants can take this letter." They'll
She's she's
they'll
probably had
make
to send,
it.
like, 12 servants to send the same letter because, like, they just keep falling off the mountain or whatever, like, freezing to death. And, I mean, not a problem for her. I'm sure
No.
I would rather freeze to death than die by her claw.
Oh, 100%. I've heard it's
Yeah.
actually kind of a chill way to die.
Oh my god, because 'cause they're cold.
But no, for real, I've heard it's pretty good.
No, you just fall asleep.
Yeah. And you have lovely dreams.
Okay, so she's, like, contacting her cousins who are in power right now, like, her uncles no longer are, it's gone down to the cousins, and she's just like, "Hey, can we all just, like, help me? Because, like, I wouldn't say I'm, like, innocent, but I'm definitely not a witch, and I'm not a
Yeah.
vampire, and
They're really
I didn't kill
exaggerating.
600 people." They're making this out to be, like, such a big thing, but they were
Way bigger deal than it
servants, most of
is.
them are servants. The king that sanctioned this investigation that was coming for her was the King of Hungary, Matthias II von Habsburg.
Mm,
And his family owed her family quite a bit of
a little
money.
bit of a debt. He also had some motive.
Yes, he had motive. Everyone in his family for the last 500 years were brother and sister. So
Their
he had
joints were
motive.
really sore.
Yeah. He was not gonna pay that debt off.
Mm,
Like, let's just say his family were dropping like flies. They were walking off cliffs. Like,
mhm. Their blood
they were
hurt.
getting hit. Yeah, they were just just falling out of the sky like fruit flies. So yeah, he had his own motivations, obviously, and he was very motivated to make sure that she died. But everyone was like, should we really make it a thing where like you can be put to death for like killing girls or peasants? Like, and then all your land and power stripped? Like, this sets a very bad precedent for us.
Right. Right.
So he's like, okay, so here's what we do. I just don't owe her any money anymore. And then we'll just punish everybody else. There's also like he was a Catholic and would eventually become a Holy Roman Emperor, and she was a Protestant. So there's some stuff going on there with power grabs and him wanting control of the region, while the Bathories all around, like all of the other Bathories, were continuing to push for independence of Transylvania. And she was vocal in supporting this and her cousins in their rebellions and their uprisings. So when they finally caught her, they had some reason to lie about what was going on because they didn't have any proof.
Right.
They had testimony, but usually secondhand. Like, oh, I saw her
Mhm.
do this to somebody.
My
But
cousin said.
yeah, my cousin saw her kill my other
Yeah,
cousin,
my other cousin.
who is my brother.
And my uncle.
So it's the end of 1610. They show up to arrest her. And all the stories say that she was like in the middle of like beating somebody bloody where with like a body in the corner. But the skeptics that I read said she was just eating dinner with like some servants, which I think is probably more believable.
Yeah, she was just chewing on some gruel.
Yeah, I find it weird that they would just happen to walk in the middle of that.
It would
Like,
be very dramatic, like,
yeah,
they weren't organizing stings back then, you know?
yeah. And Thurzo, the guy who took over her house after her husband died, he was the one that said he caught her in the act of torturing a servant girl. But he also
He
wanted
sounds a little
everything
dramatic.
that he had. And he said
Yeah.
it in a letter to his wife as well. And that's like the evidence
Mm.
that people use. But I'm like,
Yeah,
no,
he
that
was
doesn't count.
bragging.
Yeah,
Yeah. He was like,
exactly.
baby, I actually caught her and I, like, saved this girl's life. Oh, you shoulda seen it."
You should have seen it. They should call me. They should call me Thurzo Good Hero. So the trial was intense, lots of stories brought forward, and that was the main part of the trial. But she was not expected to stand trial because she was a noble person. I think
Right,
she wanted to testify, but they were like, absolutely the fuck not. Almost all of the testimony was people saying they had personally seen her torture and kill people, but almost no people saying that they had been tortured by her. And they
right.
use this as proof that she killed everyone she tortured, but I don't I don't think that's how it works. Like, we have
'Cause
no there's no people alive that she tortured, which means that she killed them all. Like, feel there's nobody alive that says that she tortured her, should not mean, well, then she must have killed them
that she must
all.
have killed them all. Yeah.
Yeah,
And, like, so we do have stories of her, like, escalating before she started killing people too, so and I mean, I guess
yeah,
maybe they weren't testifying, but, like, all of the other, like, small acts of cruelty, clearly there were people reporting on that, and they wouldn't have died. The people she was, like, pricking with pins or,
exactly.
like, the servants who she and her husband were, like, setting on fire, like, they didn't
Yeah.
die.
Exactly. There was one girl that I could find that testified that she had been tortured, but she gave that testimony in exchange for a house, a bag of gold, and like 50 bushels of wheat or something.
Yeah,
The things I would say for 50 bushels of wheat. I don't even know what
I
I would do with
know.
it, but I would love
Mm.
it. Also, a
I don't even know
house.
how to make bread.
I mean, a house would be fucking amazing too. Like, she got property. So,
Mhm.
like, and she was one of her main servants. Several of the other servants testified to her crimes, that they saw it firsthand, and that she forced them to participate.
Okay.
But all of them had been tortured by the people doing the Inquisition.
Right.
So, like, every time I find some piece of evidence, there is something that goes alongside it that makes it questionable.
Right. It doesn't seem like a very good trial to me.
I feel like trials have not changed that much over time
Right.
because I've listened to true crime. I know that
Mhm.
half the time the police just say all sorts of things
Just
and then
making
say
shit
you
up.
said all sorts of things.
They'll just lock you in a room for 48 hours until you say
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. And that's not torture. I mean, it's torture, but like they're
Hmm.
not putting pins under your nails. So, like, why would you
Right.
lie? And okay, the torture was like tearing off fingernails and fingers with red hot pincers. Like, this was not
Yeah.
like a recoverable torture. It's like I would just say whatever they wanted.
Yeah, that sounds horrible.
But according to Infamous Woman, the book, all of their stories lined up, but that could also be down to the way that the questions were asked.
Yeah.
Like, did you help her
Leading
steal
the
blood?
witness.
And yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And just saying,
And
"Yes, yes,
it's like, well,
please
then if
put
they
my
were
toenail
lying,
down."
yeah, if they were lying, why did they all say that she drank blood? It's like because
Yeah,
you
exactly.
specifically asked that question. And like obviously that story that's made up by a man. Like that
Yeah.
is something a man makes up. Like, oh my god, what if
Ew,
she's a sexy vampire?
she would not drink blood. Are you kidding me?
A
Gross.
peasant's blood?
Ew.
That's disgusting.
I bet
Who
it
knows?
smelled like
She'd get
pennies. It wouldn't
cholera.
go anywhere near
Yeah.
your mouth.
Pennies, those are for poor people. So, a bunch of other women were implicated, her servants, as was Lizzie's daughter, Catalin.
Ooh, I love that
Also,
name.
fucking gorgeous.
Catalan.
Katalan. I think
Mm.
that's their version of Catherine because I saw her
Eastern
called
Europe.
Catherine in other.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
the name. Yeah,
Eastern Europe is really churning out some good names.
I know. But she also didn't have to stand trial. So the king wanted Elizabeth executed. But after being convinced by Thurzo, again, that like this is bad precedent, he agreed, cancel the debts. But all the servants, they'd been arrested, tried, tortured, and executed within 9 days. Like, that's how long the trial was. Yeah.
Jesus.
And despite the substantial evidence against her, she was never actually tried nor convicted.
Right.
And his idea was okay, so
To be
here's what
bad
we'll
for
do,
them.
we'll send her off to a nunnery. But then
Mm.
everyone was like, I don't
Where she's surrounded by other women.
by virgins. They were like, wait,
Hang on.
hold on. So,
I bet she was
the
like, rats. So close.
oh no, don't send me to the nunnery. Oh, I would hate it there. Uh, no, like, oh no, not the nunnery as
Oh
she's like
no.
filing her claws.
Pulling it back on. Oh.
Not flipping it off. Like when so there's two potential ways that her life ended. Yes, she was definitely confined to the manor, but there are competing accounts of what happened. There's the account that she was left in a small room with nothing but bread and water, slid through a tiny slit in a door, like a Hannibal Lecter situation.
Hmm.
I've never seen Silence of the Lambs, but I assume that's how they would feed him. And the other option is that she was under house arrest, which is much more likely from everything that I
Yeah.
read, and was still having people serve her and wait on her because, again, bad precedent.
Hmm.
And it was important that she get to keep her property, that it stay under her name and that it be passed down to her children
Because bad
because
precedent.
again, like this she is so lucky that these people only cared about their own self-preservation
Yeah. They're like,
because it could
hang
have
on.
been
If we punish her in
bad.
any way, then that means we can't kill people anymore.
Yeah.
And that's simply a right that I refuse to give up.
Yeah. I wanna slip that claw back on as much as anybody else. So, she lived for 4 years after the sentence was handed down, and died in 1614. She had never left the house again, which honestly, she was probably tired. She loved her
Yeah.
house. It was like a castle, so like, oh no.
Yeah.
And after being buried in the local cemetery, and the locals are like, why are you burying next to her fucking victims? Like, this is not okay. And
Faux
then,
pas.
yeah, so they had to move her, and they moved her to an undisclosed location. And people have searched for her body. There was one place where they really thought it was going to be her tomb, but it was empty when they got there. So
Mm.
either somebody had tomb raided her. Laura Croft is like dancing with her
Laura
dead
Croft.
body.
Yeah.
Or that was not her tomb.
Right.
That was just a cute little crypt that they had. Yeah, that's the story of Elizabeth Báthory, the world's most prolific female serial killer, if it's not a lie.
Hmm. Well, that's cool. I think she was a girl boss other than
Absolutely.
just killing women,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Problematic fave.
Well, she was a boss of girls as well.
Mm.
Her servants were girls. So maybe it's just that, like,
Boss girl
you know,
keepgate.
yeah. You just sort of like gas. like she
Like
like
gas.
she did with that piece of paper in between her
In between
toes.
those toes.
Let's get those piggies all toasty, shall we?
Well, it is cold in Transylvania, so
Actually, and the floors were definitely not like the heated floors of like
yeah.
modern day
I bet it
mansions.
felt
And
so good for, like, a second.
yeah, for like a
I bet at
for like a
first you were
half
like,
second.
"Ooh, ooh, it's a
Oh my god,
little
that's so
toasty."
toasty.
And then
Yeah,
you're
and
like,
it's
"Oh,
nice
oh, oh,
to
no."
it's toasty, and it's nice to get attention, I think,
It
you
is,
know?
it is. I
Yeah.
bet the first couple of screams felt good for that reason too, because
Everybody starts looking.
I'm feeling bad for you.
Oh my god, yeah, pity feels really good.
Mm,
So yeah, anyway, she killed a bunch of girls, and that's bad. That
mhm.
I'm taking a firm stance on this one.
Killing? We don't approve.
Killing is terrible, but dancing with a corpse metaphorically by making fun of them on podcast, that's fine.
Oh, that's good, that's good.
Yeah, that's
Literally
good.
dancing with a corpse, please grow up. Like,
Yeah.
get over yourself. So embarrassing.
I'm Kaylin Conrad. You can find me on Twitter at Kaylin Conrad and on my main YouTube channel where I do video essays and drag the corpses of hilariously bad movies. If you want to suggest someone else for us to cover, you can do that over on our Patreon. You get access to our suggestion cemetery, where you can submit a name as well as a key to the morgue, where we debrief after every episode in our autopsy report minisodes.
My name is Hoots. You can find me at Punished Hoots on Twitter, and you can find me on YouTube at Hoots YouTube.
Yeah, and if you're watching us on YouTube, where we now do full video episodes, don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on the bell so you get notified every time we make a new little post. And if you're on a podcast app, give us a 5-star review. And thanks to Davi Armanino for editing this episode. You can check out more of their work at daviarmanino.com, and you should, because they're amazing.
All right, bye.
Bye.